Hi, everybody. Welcome to our spiritual sojourn. So glad happy you're with us today. And hey, Tom, how you doing?
Hi, Laurie. I'm doing so well. How about you?
Good. I'm doing well, and I'm so excited because we have Kat with us today, Kat Barron, and she is a amazing spiritual being who is on a self-love journey and is an incredible psychic, tarot reader, healer. So this is Kat, and she's going to be talking with us today about self-love.
Well, Kat, since I don't know you very well, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. The beginning of my self-love journey actually was when my daughter was born. She'll be 32 in August, so it's been a little over 3 decades. And previous to that, I had thought loving myself, like the thought of loving myself was so embarrassing. Like I was very critical of myself. I thought, put yourself down before other people do. Like that was my protective mechanism. And so I had a lot of really negative self-talk. And when I was pregnant with my daughter, I realized that if I wanted to love her the way I wanted to love her and raise her, I had to change how I talked to myself and I had to love myself. So that's really where it started for me. And I've been to many, weekend seminars with the Human Awareness Institute, which was one of the best learning places for me with self-love. You get to really practice who you are versus who you think you are and who you think you need to be to get approval and all of those things, like work through all of that. And I've just studied it over the last 30 years. And I am to the point now where I love myself easily. I talk to myself in the mirror in a very friendly manner all the time. I'm not critical of me. And if critical voices ever pop in, because they do for everybody, I'm quick to say I don't deserve that. Like I talk back, and I'm a good self-advocate. And the next frontier for me is learning how to let love in from other people, because I'm still struggling with expecting other people to love me and being open to that. So
That
we
sounds
always
like the old airline thing where you got to save yourself before you save the person next to you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you hit me with right off the bat with something I'd like to ask about. You said very early on in your introduction that sometimes you would criticize yourself before other people do. And this applies to me. So that's why I'm going to ask you about this. Because I do that in a kind of a humorous way, as a little bit. We were talking about Rodney Dangerfield before the show. And I do a little Rodney Dangerfield from time to time. How does that fit in? Is that okay? Or is that something you shouldn't do?
Well, I don't think there's any shoulds or shouldn'ts. And the question would be, how does it make you feel? Is it beneficial for you? Like sometimes I'll call myself, for example, you dumbass. I'll say that to myself. But when I say that, it's with absolute total love. It's with totally being okay that sometimes I am a dumbass. And it's self-acceptance. There's no hostility in it. There's no condemnation in it. It sounds like I'm putting myself down, but I'm not.
Mhm.
It's like there's a lot of affection there. So it just depends on what's behind the words.
Yes, that applies to me. Now, my thoughts are if I made someone laugh, then it was good for everybody. But not always is that the way it's received by others. And so people will say, well, don't say that about yourself. And they might miss the point that it was all in fun. I don't really think those things about myself like I actually am Rodney Dangerfield. So
Yeah.
how that does that fit in with your model?
I don't know that I actually have a model. If I had a model, it would be to go with the flow, like to accept all the different parts of me, not just the good parts and not just the things that I'm proud of, but the flaws and the awkwardness and like everything that is a part of me. So, and the down parts too. Like I want to love the sad me, the disappointed me, all those parts just as much as I love the me that I like to project in the world and the me that I'd like to be seen as. And so, yeah, I think it totally fits, because if you have a Rodney Dangerfield persona inside of you that likes to be expressed, then I think you should love that part of you. Well, not, I don't like to use the word should, but I think it's good to love that part of you.
Well, that makes sense. And again, you have to look back at the intention as you stated. And I'm not really truly criticizing myself. I'm just trying to make light or make everyone feel good for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The difference I would say is like when I was younger, I would like say, oh, I look awful in this outfit. Just don't even look at me. Right.
Mm.
That way nobody could judge how I'm dressed or whatever. And
Mm.
that also lowers all the expectations. Of course, you're not attracted to me. Don't worry. I don't expect you to be attracted to me. I realize I'm nothing, that sort of vibe. And that's like, why would you do that?
Mhm.
And so I really had to coach myself for years to get out of that habit.
Mm.
One of my friends used to complain to me that I never said anything without a disclaimer ahead of time. Like, I hope you won't think badly of me, but, and then I'd say my truth. Why? Why do I always have to put a disclaimer? Like, please don't hate me for telling you who I am. No, I want to be able to express myself who I am and expect to be accepted. And if I'm not accepted, then this isn't a fit in friendship or relationship, right?
Mhm.
You either like me and accept me and want to spend time with me, you like my energy, you like being around me, or you don't. And I'm finally learning not to take it personally if somebody doesn't. It's like I finally, and just in this last few months, and I just turned 60, so this is how long it took. I finally stopped saying what is wrong with me when somebody rejected me, and whether friendship or otherwise. Like I finally stopped saying what's wrong with me and just said, well, you're obviously not with the right people in this situation. So there's nothing wrong with you. You just got to find where you fit. Right.
Sense.
I think that's a good point that I think nowadays especially we'll find those people that the vibrations and frequencies that we are in match, and then there are those that we don't match, and those are the ones that we can walk away from. Because at this point, it's about finding our group that support us in being who we are.
I agree. And not compromising who you are to try to fit in or belong.
Exactly. I have a question about something you said earlier about have been on this self-love journey for a very long time, and now you're focusing on how do you let someone else love you. Seems to me the two may go hand in hand. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah. I mean, I think they absolutely go hand in hand. And there's part of me that's like, have I been deluding myself, over these past years, thinking I loved myself and supported myself? Because there's still this part of me that doesn't expect other people to love me.
Mhm.
That like I almost isolated myself in my own ball of self-love, and it was safe in my little ball. But and yes, there are people that love me, right? But um there's still a part of me that constantly expects rejection, that constantly hears that. My dad used to joke when I was little, you're more trouble than you're worth. And boy, did that became a core belief that I'm more trouble than I'm worth. So I'm always trying to prove that I'm worth it. Right. And I finally learning to stop trying to prove anything. There's nothing to prove. I'm just me. And like trying to relax into that. And I've done a really good job relaxing into that in isolation or in very controlled situations with people that I trust. But like out in the world, um, and in relationship, like personal relationship, I've been married twice, divorced twice. Would love to get married again, but like there's this big part of me that does not expect anybody to love me that way. And so like learning to be open to that possibility, because yes, of course I deserve that. Somebody would be terribly lucky to be with me. And so, yeah, I mean, that's like my next frontier, and it is related. It's clearing out those old voices that say whatever they say.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. The previous generation, well, in my case, they were part of the greatest generation. They had different priorities, like staying alive and that sort of thing. So they didn't always study and know how to treat their children to have good self-esteem. So this is something that the people that have come after them have to learn to do for ourselves. So congratulations to you for seeing that and doing it. How did you actually get started? What was the first thing that you really did that got you going?
Hmm. Well, one of the things I did when I can't remember prior to that, I was reading a lot of books. Like I've always read, for example, Louise Hay and affirmation books. I read What You Think of Me Is None of My Business by Terry Cole Whitaker when I was young. And I, even as a teenager, I read all the John Powell books about unconditional love. Like I've always sought, this has always been something I've sought. When I feel like I really started moving into it physically, I guess, like taking it from intellectual into my body is when I went to massage school when my daughter was 2. Um, I went to massage school because my motivation was I wanted to have a reason to touch people, and to allow myself to be touched, because up until that point there was part of me that felt untouchable, because growing up as a girl in the 70s, all the women's magazines told us we weren't okay, right? And I was an addict to women's magazines. So I always felt, even as I'm fat now, but when I was, and I use the word fat as just a size descriptor, not as any sort of criticism. I love my fat body, right? But when I was a skinny girl, I thought I was too fat to live, honestly.
Mm.
And I thought I was too fat to touch. Nobody would want to touch me. I thought I was gross, because that was the message I got from these magazines. And that was another part of my healing journey, was getting involved in fat community and learning to love all sizes of bodies, and to embrace health at every size, which is a whole other movement, but to appreciate my body at any size. But I just got off on that tangent and forgot where I was going.
Well,
But
we're talking about how you got started, and I think you're on a great track.
yeah, so massage school is where I learned to touch and be touched, and like to stop feeling like I was an untouchable.
Mm.
That thread still comes through me sometimes. Like, does somebody want me to touch them or not? Do they want to touch me? Am I gross? Like, and like, there's part of me that's like, nobody's gross. That is such a horrible concept, to think of a human being as too gross to touch. Like, why do we teach each other that? We are all precious, sacred human beings, fortunate to be in whatever body we're in. And every body is sacred, like literally every body, whether whatever size or shape or color, or like if there's limbs or no limbs, or whatever health issues, we're all so sacred. And it's like, it's a travesty that we're taught any different, and that we're not taught to respect ourselves so deeply and hold ourselves and each other so sacred. So massage school was sort of the start of that, where
Mm-hmm.
I learned to touch people and to be touched. And then from there, I went on to, I mentioned the Human Awareness Institute. Those workshops helped me a lot. I also took energy healing class in Michigan for 3 years. And that was also very much about being in touch with your spirituality and loving yourself as well. So like a lot of things in my life have collaborated toward that, deeper self-love and passion for that.
And that really fits with what I've been getting so much in my meditations about all of us moving into our heart space and into that soul self, and being in conscious contact with that divine love that we are, because we're all connected to source and we're all love purely. And as that radiates out, fills us, and then radiates out to the world around us, comes back to exactly what you were saying, is seeing that divine in ourselves, and then also seeing that in everybody else and honoring that, so that I can see how it begins to come full circle for me in terms of self-love.
So, Kat, you teach classes and seminars on this topic?
Yes, I have. I right now I'm actually teaching English, so that's sort of pulled me away from that a little bit. But I do a monthly meetup with Awkwardly Zen called the Self-Love Journey, the first Thursday of every month. And then I'm going to get back to teaching like seminars and stuff like that, workshops.
Now, do you do that on your own workshops virtually so anybody
Yes,
anywhere could attend?
I do.
Okay.
And I would love to start doing some, in-person events, but I don't know when that will happen. I think it's really great when you can, I mean, being online is wonderful too. Obviously, you can make connections and it's wonderful, but for me, there's nothing like touch and hugging and just being in close physical proximity that engenders a level of acceptance and a feeling of love.
So let me throw a curveball at you. It's not a bad curveball, but
So
in current society, we're being taught more than ever not to even look at some people because they don't want to be looked at. For instance, if you go to the gym, you got to keep your eyes forward or someone's going to be offended. So we've got that barrier, but yet the cure here that you're suggesting seems to be in-person touch, face-to-face contact. How do you get past that barrier?
sorry, my light just went out. It's just so random. Um, I wasn't aware there was that barrier.
Oh, yeah. It's not so much as when maybe our generation was up and coming, but right now, I think you don't dare, maybe even in the single world, you have to be very careful how you talk to strangers and how you approach strangers because some people are on a hairpin trigger. So
Wow. See,
maybe that's my own world and you're not seeing that.
yeah, I haven't seen that. Um, I don't get out much, honestly. But I guess to me, it's always been my thought, like, okay, so when I would leave, for example, a weekend workshop, I've been there from Friday evening through Sunday. I'm all loved up. I'm in this great mood. I'm ready to go out and love the world, right? And I go into like the bagel shop, right? On my way home the next day. And I'm just beaming with love and everybody's super friendly to me. And it's like the vibration.
Mm.
Um, I think people pick up on our vibe. So there's part of that. Oh, I got hired the other day and I went into a gas station to pick up something and like everybody was incredibly friendly to me. And I know it was because I was just beaming. I was so happy, right? So I think it's partly that. It's like, what vibration are you bringing? Are you afraid that people are going to be offended or rejected? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it's like out there, but um, and also if there's the approach, I mean, if you're just saying a friendly hello or if you're like, hey, like Joey on Friends, it's like, I mean, it's just how you're doing it. And the other thing is don't take it personally. If somebody doesn't, vibe with you, that's not about you. And so don't let that close you down. Don't let that shut you. Don't let that make you smaller because your light needs to shine so your people can find you. And if you're shutting your light down, and I'm talking to myself right now because I've been hiding my light at home, right? Um, don't let people make you smaller because you need to shine bright for your people to find you.
Mm. I think that's the great message right there is
Yeah,
you send out the right vibe, the right people will find you.
true. Yeah.
I've had a lot of chance to practice the 4 agreements this past year. Because in my job, I was being told regularly that I was nothing, I don't matter, I don't like you. I was hearing this pretty constantly, and I learned to not take it personally, and I learned to not make assumptions, and so it was a great training ground actually for me.
Mhm.
I needed that.
And from that, did it also strengthen that sense of inner connectedness and self-love then?
It actually really did. It
Yeah.
was like sometimes the universe gives us uncomfortable lessons, but I have found that whenever I disagree with something, or whenever I'm mistreated, it actually does make me stronger and it makes me more resilient and it makes me like, oh, yeah, I don't deserve to be treated like that. I deserve to be treated with respect and kindness.
Yeah.
And if that's not, and with love. And if that's not what's being served, I can't remember who said that. It was Nina Simone. If love isn't being served at the table, then you find a different table, or you leave the table, something like that. Oh, I butchered the quote, but you
You
get the
got the
gist,
meaning.
right?
I think that's huge because speaking for my own self, that's a lesson. It took me a long time to finally learn how to pass that lesson. And what I mean by that is if you're in a bad situation and you allow yourself to stay and be abused or be disrespected or just not be valued, that's on you. And it took me a long time to realize I have to save myself out of those situations. And I think a lot of people miss that. It took me a long time. What's your view on that?
Oh, I agree. It took it took me a very long years. Um, in each of my marriages, one was 9 years and one was 8 years. It was like neither one of them should have made it past the first year, right? But I kept trying to look on the bright side, and I kept spiritually bypassing everything, and I kept being my people pleasing self rather than my inner warrior self
Mhm.
that respected myself and expected to find love in the world. Like part of the problem was, and I maybe this was true for you as well, I was so happy to be loved by somebody that I put up with a lot of crap because I didn't think love would come from any other source.
Mhm.
And now that's one of the keys to self-love is when you love yourself, you're not looking for it to be reflected from somebody else. I mean, it's great when somebody else loves you, but you're not going to sacrifice yourself to get love you don't have. You already have it, right? So if somebody isn't treating you well, then you're not going to stick around and hope they treat you better. You're like, no, I know there's more love out there,
Mhm.
and it doesn't matter. Even if I never found love, I have it right here.
And maybe that's your lesson, and then you at that point you've learned it, you've passed it. But I think it extends far more than even just romantic relationships.
True.
I think so many of us, and myself included, have been in work situations where you were with a difficult boss and you just stuck it out because, fill in the blank. There are lots of reasons. And it takes real bravery to change that. And sometimes if you don't change it, it'll change itself for you. So that's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah. I resist change usually. I claw with my nails and no, don't make me change. And then the universe just pushes me right out. Pop. There we go. You're free now. Do what you want with your life.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. We get ample opportunities to learn and grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I keep asking for it to be gentle, and the universe says, but you're not listening. We need your attention. So,
Yeah. Yep. And they get our attention no matter what. So, yeah.
So what's your go-to trick now this far down your journey? Something that you do regularly that keeps you on your track for loving yourself. When the world is beating up on you, what's your go-to thing that you do? Do you have one?
I have several.
Okay.
Uh, I'll give you a couple. One of them is that I coach myself in my journals. I write, and like I write what I'm feeling, and then as I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, so this is how you love yourself through this, and then I write what I've learned and how I love myself deeper now. One of the things I have one of my journals here. I have at least 100 journals, books that I've filled. And I was just reading this thing that where I was coaching myself, and it says, you have nothing to be nervous about. You have nothing to prove. You have nothing to explain or justify, because I used to try to explain and justify myself like so that I had a reason to exist. No, I don't have to do that, right? So that's what I do is I coach myself in my journals and like be like, how do you love yourself deeper right now? How do you support yourself more? And the mirror trick you mentioned earlier, I think that's a really good one too. Um, Looking at myself in the mirror, like meeting your eyes and I love you and I will always be here for you. And you don't have to be perfect. And it's really okay that you feel like falling apart right now or whatever needs to be said in the moment, right? It's okay. There's nothing you have to prove to be a worthy human being. Nothing you have to earn. Nobody you have to impress. Just calm down and breathe. And breathing is, everybody always says meditate. When you're just breathing, I use an insight timer every day. Well, I have used it. Today was my day 39 in a row. Like 36 minutes is how I have it set for, because I'm doing a Reiki treatment on myself each morning. And a 36-minute Reiki treatment and just breathing and meditating while I'm doing it and just giving myself love. And that, making that a priority, making self-care a priority is so important, because like so many of us rush through our days and we're taking care of everything for everybody else. And I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And it's hard to catch our breath. It's hard to catch our heart. Like it's hard to come home inside, right? And so, and developing self-trust, that's how you develop self-trust too, is when you check in with your heart. And then you learn not only to love yourself, but to trust yourself. I couldn't trust myself for a long time, because when people were critical of me, I used to join in with them and say, yeah, they're right. You're awful. You're ridiculous. You look so stupid, right? And I would beat myself up. And I don't do that anymore. I've learned to say, nobody ever deserves mistreatment. Even if I'm totally screwing up, I don't deserve to be talked to like I'm less than human.
Right? Because whatever it
Or
is,
like,
everybody started somewhere.
yeah,
And yeah.
no matter what mistakes you make,
Mhm.
no matter how far along you are, we all fall. And we don't want to be afraid to try things and to learn and grow. So, yeah, learning to trust yourself and to love yourself, that's all with connecting in. So, I think meditating is really important. And I stay connected to myself with my writing. Like, that's almost how I know who I am.
A moment ago, you were so close to the lyrics for All You Need Is Love. And you said, you can learn how to be you in time, or something very close to that. And I almost chimed in with the chorus there because it was just right. So I'm a big Beatles fan, as my friends all know. What are there any other really vital messages you want to pass along, or any conclusions you want to make as we start to wrap this up a little bit?
um, I would say that on my website, I do have a blog, and one of my pinned posts is about steps to self love. So you can find it at holdyourselfsacred.com. You can look
Okay.
there. Um, the only other thing I would say is practice looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, you matter and I love you, because you are the only person that is going to be with you until the very end. And you deserve to have a good relationship with you. And maybe might write some lists about, if you were in the perfect relationship, how would that person treat you? What would you like them to do for you? And then do those things for yourself, like date yourself. Or if you were in the perfect job, how would you want your boss to treat you? Well, do those things for yourself. And then maybe some people will, get the hint and start doing them for you too. And you can do them for other people too, like spreading the love to yourself and to other people. And that all comes from a sense of that I matter, and what I feel matters, and what I do in the world matters. If we feel like we don't matter, we don't feel like we have something to give people. If we feel like our love doesn't matter, and this is how I used to feel. I used to feel like my love was deficient somehow, like even for friendship, like who would want to be friends with me? I'm not that special. I'm not that good, right? We have to not allow ourselves to talk like that. We have to learn to hold ourselves sacred. My love is sacred, and I'm going to shine it, and I'm going to be it, and I'm going to share it, and I'm going to be comfortable. I'm going to, you know, do it until I am comfortable saying I love you to anybody. Because to whom would we deny our love? Really? What person would you ever say is unworthy of love? There's nobody.
That's a great message. Now, you gave your website a moment ago. Are there other resources you'd like us to list? And for people that are watching this, we have those resources in the comments and description below. So, but are there any other things you want to mention, dates of activities coming up, or other locations people can visit?
Well, I definitely say check out Awkwardly Zen because it's a great spiritual community. Louise Hay has some great videos on YouTube. I've been listening to one about self-love. It's a like 20-minute affirmation thing that I listen to each morning for 21 days was the suggestion. There's so many resources on loving yourself. I mentioned the Human Awareness Institute a few times. They have workshops all over the country, and both in person and on Zoom. There's all kinds of personal growth workshops people can do, and like all kinds of people promoting self-love. It's everywhere you turn. There's cuddle parties for people who want to learn how to touch and be cuddled, and have both non-sexual contact, or there's places where you can find sexual contact if that's what you're looking for. There's so many different resources for people, and you might try something and not like it. You don't have to go back, but be open to finding what works for you, finding ways that you can feel that you belong or that you're supported in life.
That's great. And so we'll list the resources you just mentioned. I'd like to encourage everybody, if you've got a resource, something that paid off for you or worked well for you, please list it in the comments and share it with everyone else. It's a chance for other people to leverage your experience. So we'll do that. Laurie, anything else from you before we wind it up?
I don't think so. I just want to make a comment about looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I love you. That is very powerful. I was in one of your classes and have been using that, and it's incredibly powerful, and I feel it very deeply when I do that on a regular basis. So I would encourage everyone to really start there, even when it feels uncomfortable, to do it anyway.
Yeah.
If you could do that for 5 minutes a day for 30 days, it'll change your life.
Yes, I would agree.
Talk about awkwardly Zen, but I think it's a great thing to do.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, thank you, Kat. I've enjoyed it, and I've learned some great things from you here today. And this is a great topic. I hope that we are able to continue working this topic and help people out if this is something they'd like to explore. So if you've enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and share it with someone else that might appreciate it. And you can also subscribe if you'd like. And if you have comments, we'd love to hear them, and questions. And if you pass a question that needs to go to Kat, we'll make sure she gets it. Otherwise, Laurie or I will help you answer whatever questions you have. And we'd love to hear your topics for future episodes. So please list them in the comments if you like. And lastly, if you want to get a hold of us, you can just email at ourspiritualsojourn@gmail.com. And with that, we thank you for your attendance and your attention, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.